Okay, so lecture 3 is all about differentiation using delta. So this just means that you're going to differentiate a function and find its derivative using the old method or the long method of differentiation. So by definition, differentiation is the process of finding the derivative of a function, and then a derivative is just the slope of a function at any certain point. So next is the symbol triangle, which is called delta. So any change in a variable quantity is called an increment. Then number 2, delta is used to denote this change or increment. When we are talking about, or if we see the symbol delta, this means that there needs to be change, or that variable needs to be changed, or that variable has a corresponding amount of change. So if we regard x, say for example this is a variable, as the variable, then delta x denotes the increment of x. So so x is our original variable, and then delta x is the change in x, so something changed in x. So delta x can be negative or positive, but not 0. Because if you put delta x as 0, therefore we are just like saying that there is no change in x. So why bother putting delta x? So once again, put the plus change, will put minus change, depending on. Okay? So suppose we have this function, y is equals to f of x, or y is a function of x. So a change in delta x in x, which is this variable, produces a corresponding change delta y in y. So if you can recall, when we're talking about functions, it is a certain law of correspondence. So whatever the value of x or the independent variable should also be reflected in the dependent variable, which is in this case y. So kung para lang, kung tayo ma-change sa x, syempre dapat natin ma-change sa y. Okay, so this is our function to consider. So first is put a change here. So it's just simply, we're going to simply replace this by x plus the change. Right? So function of x plus the x, or function of x then added by the change. So this change can be negative or positive. Then on the left side, this now becomes y plus delta y. So y, then change in y. Okay? So this is important to know, for in this case, we're going to find what is the value of delta y. Because later, we will know why it is important to find delta y. So it is needed in finding the derivative of a function. Okay, so to find the value of delta y, we just simply isolate it. So we move this y from the left side of the equation to the right side of the equation. So delta y is just f of x plus delta x. Then since positive man ang y, minus y. Then the next step is we're going to make this into an all x alone function. So this has a x alone variable. So this has a y variable here. So we're going to change it into a variable x, or we're going to find its corresponding value. So remember, we started with y is equals to f of x. So therefore, y here is just f of x. So this is now negative f of x. So as you can see, the rest of the equation is now all in function of x, meaning no variables y involved. Then the left side is isolated Meaning that delta y is this part right here. Okay? So once again, this is important. Delta y is important if you're going to find the derivative of function. So in the following part of this topic. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I said that the derivative is just a slope of a function at any given point. Now remember, if we are just talking about basic geometry, there's no such thing as a slope in a point, right? Because a slope needs to have 2 points to get the slope. So, for example, ganang slope. Then remember, a slope can only be found if it is a straight line. So, for example, we have here a function of x, which is x squared. So, this is again a parabola. So, for curves yan. Then ang main purpose sa derivatives, o pagkita sa derivatives, kaya makuha na ito ang rate of change sa, for example, muna ang value sa x. So, for example, gusto nila ito makita ang, kumbaga, ito relate siya sa physics. Di ba, physics natin, displacement or distance, dapat tayo velocity or speed. So, for example, dalihan ako for example, 8 na. Dalihan ako sa 8 meters. Kumbaga, ako ang gusto na kupaon kung saan akong dagan dalihan. So, para makuha na, kuha na ito ang slope dalihan na part. So, kumbaga, pag nakailangan na distance, which is 8, for example, 8 meters, makuha na ito ang iyahang velocity or imong velocity at dito na point sa distance gamit ang derivatives. So, wala lang. Then, isa lang na siya apart sa application sa derivative. So, dagan pa na siya apart. So, ito lang sa para mas simple. Remember, if you're going to we start with a displacement like this, 8. We're going to find its velocity by differentiating our distance. Okay, so from here, ato siyang di ba, kumbaga point man sa slope, di ba, ang ginaingon. Actually, ang point diri ato ang ginaingon is approximation of a point only. Because we're going to set the change in x as a very, very small number which is closest to 0, but not really 0. Because if 0 na, exact point na siya, hindi na siya approximated point. So, main purpose from here to this graph, pero ako ang i-zoom in ang graph. So, kumbaga, sa kanina point, ako ang i-zoom in. Pag zoom in na ito siya, nana siya yung graph. Pero ang line niya, hindi na siya curve. Kumbaga, mas straight ang curve, then makuha na ito yung slope. Pero ang change na delta x and delta y, is very, very, very small or approaches to 0. So, hindi na siya ma-consider as a point sa calculus. Pag calculus ito ginagawa. So, So, balik ka. Kuha na ito ang velocity diriya sa atong distance. Pag ito na zoom in, mo na ito makita diriya. Baga lang. So, pag zoom in na ito hindi siya exactly point, pina siya yung first point, tapos siya yung second point, na nagadepende sa change in delta x and change in delta y. Diba ang slope is just a rise over run, diba? So in this case, our rise is delta y, or the change in y, and our run is delta x. So, pwede na ito makuha ang slope gamit ni lang. Diba? Then next example, we're going to find the derivatives of some example functions. So I hope that this concept is understood. So once again, we're finding something, or we're going to find the velocity in this case, in this particular point. So if we zoom in that point, we're going to find this zoomed 2 points, which is divided by the change in y and the change in x and then the change in y. So therefore, we can find the slope. So in theory, if we're going to come up with a very, very small change in x and change in y, this curve, actually the curve of the function x squared becomes slightly straighter compared to having for example, kaniyang katawang points. So, dako kayo siya ng curve. Pero kung gamay kayo ang distance from here to here, mura na siya straight. So, muna ang main na concept sa derivatives. Okay, so as I wrote earlier, we found out that s, or the slope, is nothing but delta y, or the change in y, or as we consider as the rise, then the change in x is the run. So this is a formula of finding the slope of any straight na local points. Okay? So ato na siya apply sa calculus, yung formula. So the slope delta y over delta x is just this value. So delta y, remember, is this function or this value. So delta y will become f of x plus delta 1 delta x minus f of x, then as is lang sa delta x. Now remember, this is a very broad way of thinking about slopes. So in this case, we're not just thinking of derivatives first, because it can be applied in any geometric applications that doesn't involve calculus. But remember, we are dealing with calculus, so we need to find how to find the derivative of a function. So, since this is calculus, and then remember, derivative is just the slope at a certain point, meaning gamay ka ay change ang delta x ang delta y. So, pasabot na atuwa siya ang butang i-apply na ito ang limits nila. So, atuwa siya i-limit. So, the limit now of delta y over delta x, as delta x approaches 0, because we need to have a very small change in x and y in order to find the slope of that point. Okay, so this is now our new formula. So, since delta y is this, then delta x is the same. Copy lang. Limit of delta y, which is f of x plus delta x, minus f of x over delta x. Then delta x approaches infinity. So, by this formula, we can now find the derivative of any given function. Okay, so this is also called as, this is nothing but dy over dx. So when we are going to meet or handle a lot of these in our subject, so dy over dx. So remember, dy over dx, or this one, the limit of delta y over dx, or delta x, as delta x approaches 0 is just dy over dx. Or dy over dx is just this, so limit delta y over. Then this, of course, is just this one. So did I know? Is equal to. Okay, so ito lang visualize. Okay, so pag mag-ingon dito na kita na ang change in, for example, natay function y. Then the problem is we need to find the derivative of y. So just simply by method of differentiation, we can get this dy over dx, or the derivative of y with respect to x. So ano lang mapasa? Derivative of y with respect to x, or dy over dx. So dy over dx came from the original function. Okay, so we actually have three simple examples. Then dili lang kayo natin siya patason na topic because kung yung niya, all siya na, or itong mga paraan siya ng mga pumaagi para makuha ang derivative. This is very time consuming and yeah, very long in terms of the formulas. So, ato lang siya importante man na makabalo na kung sa ng concept sa derivative. Then next topic na po, i-apply na natin itong mga simple na pamaagi para makuha ang derivative sa isang function. Okay. So example number 1. So di ba, trivial naman na formula is dy over dx is something like this. So example number 1, find the derivative of this function. So y is equals to x squared, or y is a function of x because y is dependent on the value of x. So the independent variable here is x, the dependent variable is y. So by using this formula, we can find dy. Derivative is just dy over dx. So this is now dy over dx is equal to the limit of delta y so dapat paano lang itulaan ang value sa delta y. So ang muna first step sa delta y from this equation, delta y plus delta y. Matuwagan na ang y over delta y. And kasi sa x, may mong x plus delta x, may close sa parenthesis. So x plus delta x then square. So tala. So ang x, may mong x plus delta x, ang y plus delta y. Then since we are going to find the value of delta y, so we move this to the left and the right. So this is just delta y is equal to x plus delta x squared minus y. Then remember, we're going to have to deal with the right side of the equation by only dealing with variables of the independent variable. So therefore, we need to change this y because this is y and the rest are x. So from the main equation, we actually have the value of y, which is x squared. So we're just going to substitute y with x squared. So delta y is nothing but x plus delta x squared minus the value of y, which is x squared. Okay, so we now have the value of delta y. Then also delta x is as is naman. Pwede na naman padayon gamit ang formula. So the formula is that. So the derivative of y with respect to x is just the limit of delta y over delta x as delta x approaches 0. Okay. So by using this formula, and then once again we have the value of delta y and x. At all that's not true. So this now becomes the limit of delta y, which is that x plus delta x squared minus x squared. Then over delta x. And then as delta x approaches. Okay. So next is we're going, dili pa natin ma-distribute or mabutang ang delta x as 0, diba? Kung ato siya mong 0 diri kuha na siya, undefined na siya na value. Therefore, natin buhato na manipulation diri para makakuha ito itong exact na number, and then dapat define na ito ang makuha na limit. So remember, delta x supposed to 0 yan, ang delta x sa ubos, so may mong 0 sa ubos, therefore dili na siya, or undefined na siya. Then dapat ito pakitawan is defined value of the limit. So therefore, ito sa simplify sa as is na rin sa ubos. So pag simplify na, this will become x squared plus 2x delta x, simple lang siya, equal method lang, plus delta x squared. So di parenthesis na po siya kay say isa lang sa unit ng delta x. So dapat dito sila sa parin. Then okay, minus. So pwede na wala. minus x squared. So sa ganang kani ikan 3a yung gamit ang foil para makuha. Okay, so copy as always is delta x. Dahil dapat nalimtan na dapat natin siya yung limit niya kani delta x. Okay, so next simplify na itong numerator. So may muna siyang limit of the numerator. So x squared minus x squared ma-cancel out. Tara na. Then the rest again. So the limit of 2x delta x plus over delta x as delta x approaches 0. So diri pag ato ang insert ng 0 diri dili mo pwede nangatay ba na po sa taas. So if you notice naa sila common ang duha ka terms kani o kani. Ang ilang common na part kani delta x. So pag common yan pwede na siya ma-factor out. So kung matuwa siya factor out delta x approaches. So ito ay factor out ang delta x may muna siyang pagkawas ng delta x so ang kani umilin diri may muna lang 2x. Then kani since squared na siya isa lang ito ba ng delta x mabilin na delta x lang then over delta x. Then delta x divided by delta x cancel out. So ang mabilin kay the limit of 2x plus delta x as delta x approaches 0. So in this case, pwede na natin mabutang ang value sa delta x. So the value of delta x by using this limit. So 2x is not delta x, so ayaw i-lovely. Kapas isa na siya. Then plus delta x is now 0. So therefore, our derivative of y with respect to x is just 2x. So therefore, we can say that the derivative of y is equals to x squared is nothing but 2x. For the second example, this is a little bit different because we notice that the dependent variable is s instead of y, and that the independent variable is is t instead of x. So to find the derivative, we're just going to simply replace this. Instead of dy over dx, we're going to replace it with ds. So this is dy, y is the dependent variable, and then x is the independent variable. So ang taas kay dependent, then ang baba ay independent. So ds over dt. So ano lang siya, hindi lang siya always na dy over dx na ay ng mga variables. Depende na sa factors. Okay, so this is just the limit of, instead of change of y, we're going to say change of s over change of x, which is change of t now. Then this is now delta t as it approaches 0. So this is now the formula in finding the derivative of s with respect to t. So respect to t siya, dili na siya with respect to x. So when we say with respect, we're going to say that we're going to derive this dependent variable with respect to this independent variable. So this is t. Okay, so di ba niya atong ikuha ang delta y. So dili na ba itong ang delta s. So to do that, ayan na. S will become s plus delta s. Then t will become t plus delta t. So this is just t plus delta t. Yeah, squared. Minus 5. T is just t plus delta t. Okay? Then since we're just concerned with delta s, move this to the right. So this is now delta s is equal to 4 times t plus delta p squared minus 5 times t plus then minus x. Then remember, dapat independent variable na natin. Then nasa independent variable dito, so ito ay change ang iyang value. since ang value sa S is kani, pwede na siya i-substitute diya. So this now becomes, ato siya buta sa parenthesis, kay duwa man siya ka-term. Wala siya naka-parenthesis, hindi ma-distribute ang negative. So ato na siya parenthesis. So 4t squared minus 5t. Okay? So this is now the value of delta S. But we can still simplify this before performing this part or method. So delta S becomes 6 4t plus delta t squared. Kani ulit po distribute na negative 5. Kaya, so this now becomes negative 5t times negative 5 delta t. Then this is just negative, distribute ang negative, negative 4t squared. Negative times negative is positive, so positive 5t. Then check for the same terms. So kani o kani, dito siya minus. So negative 5 or a plus. Negative 5t plus 5t is just 0. So cancel na. So our delta S is now 4 times t plus delta t squared. Wala na rin, kanina, minus 5 delta t minus 4t squared. Okay. So since we now have the value of delta S, so we are going to perform this operation. So ds over dt is nothing but the limit of delta S over delta t as delta t approaches 0. So since we have a value of we don't have the value of delta S, so delta S is that. So 4 times t plus delta t squared minus 5 delta t minus 4t squared all over delta t. Okay? So, kung ganyan, ang example, kung ito ang insert ratio ng 0, undefined na siya. Dapat natin kung sa taas. So, kung ganyan, ako na siya full method was para ma-expound. Mangita tawag mga like terms. So this is just the limit of kopyahin. Always kopyahin limit para makabaluntan na ato rin gawin na limit para makuha ang value. So kani kung ato na siya equal, may mo na siya t squared plus 2t delta t plus delta t squared. Then copy minus 5 delta t minus 4t squared. Then sobos delta t lang. Okay? Yeah, distribute about 4. So this is just the limit. This is 4t squared. Then this is plus 8t delta t. Then plus 4 times delta t squared, then minus 5 delta t, then minus 4t squared. Okay? Then delta t. So we're going to find like terms. Then ako lang makita na kanila ang like terms. Kani o kani. Then since pareha sila ang operator minus, makancel lang. So kung makancel na, kanila lang mabilin. So our limit or our function now becomes 8t delta t plus 4 delta t squared minus 5 delta t over delta t. So once again, hindi pa na ito magamit ang 0 because 0 dili undefined keyword. So hanap mo tayo ibuhat sa numerator. So may notice again na si delta t, delta t, delta t. O yun, so factor out, yan ito ang i-divide ang delta t. So first is factoring out delta t. So delta t, yan, open parenthesis, this is now only 8t. Kaya ito ang ikuha delta t. Kani plus 4, since doang delta t niya, pag isa, bilhin na lang delta t. Yan, kani minus 5 na. Okay? Then, syempre over delta t. So delta t cancel. Then this is the time that we can substitute the value of delta t in. So at once I'm rewrite wala na eh. So bili na lang kanina. So 8t plus 4 delta t minus 5. So distribute this now becomes, so wala tayong mabutang dito, di ba? 8t mo siya, di mo siya delta t. So copy lang 8t plus 4 times delta t which is 0. Then since constant siya as is. So our derivative now, derivative of s with respect to t is nothing but 8t plus 0, so wala na, minus 5. So therefore, we can say that the derivative of s with respect to t is this, or the derivative of 4t squared minus 5t is simply 8t minus 5. Okay, so this is the last example for differentiation using delta. Then by next topic, we are going to proceed with a more somewhat simpler way of solving for derivatives. And then, kaya ko na mas sayo dito paraan ng naman ito. Okay? So, let's begin with finding the value of the delta y. So, this y becomes y plus delta y. This is just 1 over x becomes x plus delta x. And since y delta y na kita, bali ng y is x. This is 1 over x plus delta x minus y. Then remember y is just 1 over x. So pwede na siya ngayon 1 over x. Okay. So nanatay delta y, so pwede na natin ma-perform in the equation. So we can say that dy over dx is just equal to the limit of delta y over delta x equals x 0. Okay? So the value of our delta y is, value of our delta y is this. So over there. So our delta y is 1 over x plus delta x. Then minus 1 over x. Then delta y, delta x, sorry. So, 1 na ito ang formula. Okay, so, continue na dali So, pareha ito ganyan, pag 0 diretsyo, automatic, undefined ang answer. So, nalaman tayo buhat doon sa taas. Dahil sa taas, di ba, butang fraction na siya, yan ay minus 5. Pwede na siya masubtract gamit itong GCF. So, GCF kailangan nito, kaning x plus delta x times x. So, para mas masubtract ito. So, di ba, familiar, di ba, ng GCF, di ba? So, kani ato ang i-multiply. So, boss, may mo siya ang denominator ng x plus x times x. Sa taas, yan sa taas, kay mag-subtract na dria. So, kumbaga, dria lang. Kumbaga, may x plus delta x times x. So, manali ang pag-subtract o dili pareha o denominator ng mga factors. So, kani tanan divided by ang mabili ng x na lang, di ba? Then x times 1 is just x. Then minus divided by x ang bilhin din ng x plus delta x. So, x plus delta x multiplied by 1 is just x plus delta x. Then, notice na po ninyo, ako siyang nibutan sa parenthesis yung para pag-distribute sa negative, dili ka mali. Then, because duha ka terms. Okay? So ito sa na-simplify, kanina part, may mo siyang x, distribute ang negative x, minus delta x, over x plus delta x, times x. Na. Then, since pareha ni, cancel din niya, minus, cancel. Ang nabili na lang, delta x, kanin sa ubos. So, mabutang ito dali delta x na lang nabili sa taas. Then, naamoy delta x dali which is gikan dali. Okay? So, dali siya makita, di ba? So, kani siya fraction divided by s. So, numerator, kumbaga mo na numerator sa fraction, mo na ang denominator sa whole. So, kumbaga, cancel na ito kani. So, mabilin na lang sa tuwang function karon kay negative 1 over x plus delta x times x. Diba? Kay numerator divided by denominator, makancel, mabilin. Since lang na siya invisible 1 niya, so negative 1, kanina mawala na it's 1 lang mabilin na. So, wala rin. So, ito i-check kung pwede naman natin magamit ng 0. So, mura pwede na siguro. So, ito na distribute ng 0. Ito na substitute ng value sa delta x as 0. This is just, so this is a constant, so negative 1 na. Then x may hindi siya delta x, so hindi pwede yung yan. And kanya delta x plus 0. Delta x is 0. Then multiplied by x. So simplify, it's just negative 1 over x multiplied by x. Or this is just negative 1 over x squared. Therefore, we can say that the derivative of that function, which is 1 over x, is just negative 1 over x squared. So this is dy